At Kroger Pharmacy, care is what's most convenient for you. Care is being here when you need us. We're open evenings and weekends. Care is helping you save more. Most insurance plans and discount cards are accepted at your local Kroger Pharmacy. Care is saving you time by managing your prescriptions online. You can request refills, check order status, and more. Care is convenience that works for everyone. Kroger Health, a world of care is in store. Services and availability vary by location. Age and other restrictions may apply. For coverage, consult your health insurance company. Visit the pharmacy or our site for details.
You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the concept of blocking. What happens when someone blocks you? And recently, I have created some video content on YouTube and the Good Men Project on the concept of blocking and how it can be so painful. I'm about to put out actually a video here coming up soon about how to offset being blocked, how to basically do the right thing prior to that so that the situation doesn't take place. Now, it doesn't work every single time, but it does work a lot of times. And so it's interesting because I've experienced it. I've had many clients experience the concept of being blocked and how painful that can be and what that does to your psyche. Because when somebody blocks you, especially out of the blue, or if it's a heated situation, maybe there's a lot of things that you need to talk about or a lot of things that you need to get off your chest, as well as any sort of fears that come from core wounds and those core wounds that really connect with us as far as creating that stress, anxiety, creating that trauma response, creating that response that might be more than the situation, but it's hard to see that because of the impact of what's happening. And so when we're thinking about this, many of you out there have been blocked, and I've gotten a lot of comments on some of these videos, and it's painful. It's painful, especially if you're not in the same place as that person. You know, you can't communicate with them. You can't see them. You can't go to their house. You can't do anything like that. And that can be really super overwhelming. I've had some people reach out saying that they were blocked by people that they were talking to in different states or different countries and how they had this really great conversation and the communication was going well. And then all of a sudden this block. I've had clients also tell me about how they brought some information to light in a conversation, and it was, basically addressing a problem, a lie, a problem or a situation, and then that person turned around and blocked them. And what they thought would have been a cool down period turned out to be much longer. Now, there's some folks out there that use blocking for different reasons, right? They've had enough, they can't handle the conversation anymore, they need to take a break. There's a lot of things that happen. So blocking can last for various different amounts of time. But even if it lasts for one day, the impact that has on some folks can really be devastating. And so joining me, Adriana is joining me on the show today. And Adriana, we were talking not on air, but off the air before about, being blocked and the thoughts that come through our mind when we are blocked. Tell me more about how you feel if you've been blocked and what were the thoughts that were going through your head?
Right. Well, when I'm blocked personally, just a plethora of different thoughts go through my brain. It's hard to pinpoint just one. It's like, oh my God, they're going to leave me forever. This relationship's over. They hate me. I'm worthless. It's a really awful, awful feeling, especially when you don't exactly know why you're being blocked. Now, if you do know why you're being blocked, I find it's easier but it's when it's out of the blue. Even it's just a painful, painful experience, honestly. It's not a fun feeling.
And especially when you're not, okay, so when you are being blocked and you don't know why.
Right.
That's
because
painful.
Then the brain, you just go down a rabbit hole about everything that you've done wrong. And you just rabbit hole and it gets you nowhere good. And you just have unresolved, you just don't get the answers because you're blocked. So it's incredibly stressful. And you take it out all on yourself. I would personally just take it out all on myself because I had no idea how to get a hold of the person that I love the most. So, and it's just not a fun feeling to have. It's very unsettling.
Do you feel like you internalize, so when that happens, you internalize it?
I always internalize everything, and especially if it's something to me, I always go to, well, it's all my fault. I've done something wrong. I'm a bad person. So absolutely, internalizing, rabbit holing, catastrophizing, all of that happens.
And so that's the slippery slope. And so when that happens, and I know it's like we feel like our hands are tied because that person has dropped communication, and so there's really nobody, there's no one to ask a question or to take it out on. It's just taking it out on ourselves.
Right. And what with you were saying earlier when you were talking about trauma responses, I mean, sometimes like before I wouldn't know, like I've been in therapy, I've learned that it is a trauma response that your body does have to stuff that's happened in the past. But it's scary having those trauma responses because it's totally, it feels like it's completely out of your control. Like you just, your body reacts the way it does, and that's the scary part, especially when it's something so serious and something so sudden as being blocked by someone you love the most. It's just this response that just kind of takes over you. So
I think it's the toughest thing when somebody blocks you, when it's not possible to see them. So it's not like you live down the street, or
right.
that's really hard.
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, when I've been blocked, I've like shown up at the person's house. So I've had like that closeness was there. Was it something I should have done? Absolutely not. But yes, like if I'm, and I have been blocked by people like across in a totally different state than me, but I realize they're blocked and blocked for good reason. Like I don't want to have any contact with them, and that's totally fine. And some of them are toxic, and it's fine. They're unhealthy for me. I can appreciate that. But when it's somebody that it's different with, depending on who blocks you, it's a different reaction, I suppose.
So let's divide that up. So that's interesting. So you have the unhealthy or toxic folks, versus the people that aren't. So, and I think that in the beginning, though, even if somebody is toxic and unhealthy to be around, we're around them, we still have feelings for them. I mean, it's not like we're like, oh, they're toxic, and I'm gonna check off all these boxes, and I'm gonna just emotionally separate and be done. But it's hard.
It was incredibly hard for me to do. I was in tears. I still wish I could unblock them, but that's probably like the negative voice in my head telling me to unblock them, because I know that nothing good will come out of the situation if I were to unblock everybody that I did, because it's for my benefit, and I know I will go spiraling downhill if I were to ever see what's going on in their life. I just don't need to see. I know that I know that now. Before, I wouldn't have cared. I wanted to see it, get wrapped up in it. What are they saying? What are they doing? How are they doing? Now I don't care. I mean, I do care, but I don't at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. I get it. So if it's somebody that's toxic, in beginning, it's really hard to disconnect and to move forward. But over time, we realize the problem is that they weren't healthy for us anyway, and so it's a lot easier to get over.
I mean, it's a loss. I mean, I'm still grieving the loss of that relationship. It's definitely a loss, but it's in order to lose them, in order to grow healthy in my brain and my life, I have to lose them. And unfortunately, that's what has to happen sometimes.
So let me ask you, I think there's a lot of people listening right now that have dealt with this, where you have someone in your life, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, and you have real feelings for them, but they're very unhealthy for you. And I know there's a lot of people listening that maybe that unhealthy person, that unhealthy person that blocked them. And I don't think it makes it any easier that they were unhealthy, because I think also the other parts of the unhealthy relationship is that they were probably also manipulating and gaslighting or augmenting the reality too. So it's almost like you have that burden of dealing with being blocked, but then the second burden is the fact that you can't ask the questions of what really happened.
Right. It's just, yeah, I'm not sure to respond to that one, honestly.
So what I'm asking is, how do you go through your brain in a situation? Because I know how hard it is for me to do it, and I think for most people. How do you begin to process that when somebody that is, in an unhealthy, it's a toxic relationship, they're not playing a healthy role in the relationship, they block. How do you walk through the process of trying to rebuild and get back in the center?
Honestly, for me, it's just a lot of looking back at self and what was I getting out of that relationship, because I knew they were negative for me, but I was getting something out of it. So a part of me was getting something out of that. But just can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So I can
no,
answer.
exactly. Well, I'm thinking, when we're dealing with that toxicity and then the person does block us, and the thing is, there's parts of that person, not every part of the person is bad.
Right.
There's parts of that person that is good. Like it's, I've had
Mm-hmm.
friendships where they are, they're great with the community. They go out and do amazing things. They can help you on certain things, but the toxicity outweighs the other part.
For sure.
But we see that part, and then it's hard when somebody blocks. It's hard because you start picking up the pieces, and you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out, first off, like, why, and then second of all, you're trying to put all the pieces together. Why was I in it, and where was the confusion here, and then what are the things that I really don't know about the relationship?
Right. I mean, personally, I'm trying honestly not to even overthink it. There's a big part of me that is actually relieved that I'm blocked by them, because that'll give me the time that I need to work on myself rather than be so consumed with what's going on in their head and what's going on in their life that like I just don't want to know. I just don't need to know. In order for me to move on, them blocking me is probably the best thing, and me blocking them back as well is probably the best thing I could have done. So
That
I'm not
makes
even
sense.
I'm not really questioning it at all. I'm kind of relieved. I feel like a sense of freedom, to be honest.
That's powerful. That's
Hmm.
powerful. Yeah, and I think that sense of freedom is interesting. And I wonder how many people can kind of reflect on that and feel that way. I think it might take, for some people, maybe a few days, even a few weeks, even a few months to see that.
I mean, they've been blocked for now about half a year. So I've had to do a lot of work. I've therapy. Just looking back, looking at them as how they were, and looking at myself and what mistakes I may have made and what I can do to change those mistakes and grow. So it's like you said, it's painful. It's a grieving process, but in the same time, it's also incredibly freeing to be able to be freed by somebody who's now that you see is like incredibly toxic, and you just didn't see that then.
That's
So
true. And we didn't want to see it as well. Stay tuned.
no.
When we return, we'll be talking more about being blocked, the trauma response of that. When we're dealing with being blocked by unhealthy or toxic people. But then on the flip side, we're going to talk about, when we're being blocked by a family member or a very close relative or friend, what the impact of that is. So stay tuned. Adriana is going to join us throughout the entire hour. Live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
What you're hearing is Hardie Fiber Cement Siding living up to its reputation as the siding that helps resist weather damage, no matter what Mother Nature throws its way. James Hardie knows how important a reputation is, especially when you're a home builder. That's why Hardie products withstand the elements better than wood-based siding, with styles to match their strength. Because when home builders work with us, we deliver our best so they can look their best. Protect your reputation with exterior products by James Hardie. Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're talking about being blocked. And right before the break, we were talking about the concept of being blocked in this situation by someone that we eventually realize, or throughout the process, understand that they are not adding to our quality of life, that they are actually quite toxic for us. And Adriana, we were talking about that. And you were saying, hey, it's been about 6 months now with this particular situation, and I feel a lot better. And you're saying, I feel a lot more free. I feel freer. And so, but it took a while to get to that point to feel freer.
Oh, absolutely. Do I still think about the people that block me every day and wondering if they're doing well? Yes. Does it take a lot in me to not reach out to them some other way? There's other ways that I could obviously reach out to them. I could email them. I could use somebody else's phone, but that would be incredibly stupid on my end, because part of me knows that they are blocked for a reason. They cannot and will not serve any type of purpose in my life, because I know I will just be drugged back down with that toxicity. So I don't do it. So it's very, very, very hard, but it is possible, and I'm showing myself that every day that it is possible.
Well, you're doing a good job. I've had some clients. It was interesting. I had a client the other day that was telling me that they go online and use all these different numbers to be able to call the
Hmm.
person that's blocked them.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's like an app, WhatsApp. You put in a fake phone number, and then you can just dial whoever. Like, has that crossed my mind? Absolutely. But like, does the wise brain in me say not to do that because that would be stupid? Yes. So it's just trying to it's those two parts in your brain, like, the wise mind, a healthy mind, and then there's, I don't remember the terminology for it, not so healthy mind, and you just have to tell that to shut up and do the right thing, the next right thing. And that's what I've been trying to do.
Do you think that we do those types of things because we want answers, or we want to? I mean, like, what?
I mean,
Why do we do that?
for me, absolutely. For me to reach out to them, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be complete self sabotage, because I know they, like I said earlier, they will serve no good purpose in my life. The only thing that, like I said, do I love them? Yes. Do I miss them? Yes. But it's just, now I forgot the question.
No, you're good. But I think some people like, so I know that you're in a different place right now with that particular situation, but there's
Hmm.
a lot of folks that are listening that aren't there yet. You know,
Right.
they're like, hey, I really want to get this person to talk to me. I really need some answers. Do you think that that's one of the main reasons why people will go to different extents, like
Oh, shit, for
changing their
sure.
number and all this stuff to get them to call them?
And I guess the place that I've gotten to is like, are those answers going to be more beneficial or more helpful to me at this point? Like, it's just, I mean, like I said before, way back when, like, I used to do this with a family member of mine, and I would find ways to talk to that family member when I was blocked. I mean, I would show up uninvited. So, and that never went well. And after all those times, I mean, I've always learned the hard way. It just doesn't go well. For me personally, I got more hurt and heartbroken by doing that and getting answers I didn't want to hear from the other person. So, yeah. So I've done it. I've done it before, and I've learned that, you
What
know,
was it like in that situation? When we show up to someone's house,
I mean,
what are we
it was,
wanting them to do?
I'm not sure if I exactly knew what I wanted in that moment. I just knew that it was a person that I loved very, very much. They blocked me, and I have struggles with abandon like attachment problems. So I just automatically thought I was being abandoned. I'm like, okay, this isn't happening. So I wanted to show up, see if she would open the door for me, and if like she saw any sign that she still wanted me, she'd just open the door. She opened the door. So that was like, to me, like, okay, she's not abandoning me, but she still blocked me. So it's, in some sense, it was a little bit of like a, not a, it was just, it was answering a question I guess I had. Was I really being abandoned? The answer was no, because
Okay.
she opened the door for me.
Yeah, well, I
So,
get it. I mean, like somebody opens the door. I mean, and
yeah.
I understand that, and I think that that goes back to the fear of abandonment, which is very real.
Yep.
When you feel like someone that you care about is going to leave you,
Yes.
that can start a whole storm of thoughts.
Yes. Absolutely.
And it's like
Unfortunate.
autopilot, right? So it's like right when that happens, you're dialing in,
Mhm.
phone's been blocked, you call in again, it's not working. All of a
Mhm.
sudden, the mind just starts going.
That. Yep. And you do like, I used to call everybody else too that had that person's phone number. Like, get me in touch with the person who blocked me. But yeah, but like I said earlier, like, trauma response, it's a real thing. So that's what that is. And you just have to take a step back and think, like, why am I having this response? Is this response, mm, like, I hate using the word extreme, but sometimes I honestly say, is this like an appropriate reaction to what like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So
Yeah, like is
It's
this
hard.
appropriate to the
Yeah.
situation?
hmm It's not easy. It still isn't easy. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of work.
Well,
But
it's interesting you bring that up because I had a client the other day say, they had been blocked by a very close friend, and I said,
Mhm.
well, okay, is this the first time? No. And I said, so how many times have you been blocked? Probably. They're like, maybe like 7 times. And I said, for various different lengths of time. And I said, but the seventh time wasn't any less traumatic, right, than the first time.
right. hmm It's just that initial, like, that block. You see, okay, the brain just goes to, they don't care about me. They don't want me. I'm an annoyance. I'm not worthy. They don't love me. For me personally, that's immediately where the brain jumps to. So it's hard. Like, I don't know what other word to say. It's like, it's painful in a sense, but I've had, like, the opportunity to work with somebody who's helped me, like, to take a step back and say, okay, so what is the reasoning maybe for them blocking me? Like, what have I done on my side?
I get it. What have you done on your side? What are some of the things that we might have done to contribute to that specific situation?
Right. Yep.
Is it when you're able to do that, do you feel like, I mean, how hard is it to keep circling back around to looking at our side of the fence?
I mean, like, do you mean like self-blame and everything you've done wrong as a personally?
No,
Like, you're
like you said, like, you've been working with someone that's like, hey, what did you contribute? It's, because that's the thing, is that how hard is it to look at how we might have contributed versus blaming
oh,
ourselves?
I mean, honestly, that's still something I'm still working on. I mean, I I constantly blame myself for everything and think that I'm the problem, but really it's not really my fault. The way that I have certain reactions to things, it's a result of what's happened to me, like, as a child and etc. So I have to give myself some grace with that. I hate myself that. I want to hit myself for saying that, but giving yourself grace is just huge, because you're just it like something you've taught me, Ashley, is just negative self-talk about yourself is just very self-sabotaging, and that's something that doesn't get you anywhere either. So looking at self and thinking, okay, well, what could I have done differently? What did I do to maybe contribute to this is incredibly hard. But I mean, that's the only way that you can grow as a person and learn. And so you don't have this in other relationships that you have. So
That's true. That's
yeah.
true, and you're right. The self sabotage, and I do think a lot of times when we're in various relationships, there can be a tendency of self sabotaging, and even with the
hmm
relationship with ourselves. I mean, we self sabotage. I think we all do it to some degree.
Oh yeah, I'm probably the queen of that. I have learned, unfortunately. Yep.
And I think a lot of people do it, and I think we all do it to some degree. And I think that in the process of doing it, it's interesting because it can be very big sabotage and very very small sabotage, and people don't see it. Like some people don't catch the small tiny bits of sabotage, and then some of us are constantly negatively talking about ourselves,
Right.
reinforcing that pain or reinforcing that trauma.
hmm I mean, it like self-sabotage. There's like like a lot of it I didn't even know was self-sabotage until the therapist brought it to my attention. Like, you just don't know when you're even doing it, which is the scary part. But you do learn.
You do. When we
You
return,
do.
when we return, we talk more about self sabotage and kind of the concept there, and being able to understand kind of our core wounds, but then the judgments that we have on ourselves too. I think that when we get blocked, we start judging ourselves for various things, and there's things that we need to be
hmm
aware of and things to learn from, but yet there's sometimes like Adriana was saying, we need to have some grace for ourselves. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we've been talking about being blocked, the outcome, but also the feeling. Many of us have been blocked. Some of us have been blocked multiple times. Some of us have been blocked and then unblocked, blocked, and unblocked again. And when we go through that process, all of us internalize it different. Many of us experience it different. We feel differently about it. Some of us internalize it. What did we do wrong? What are the questions? Oh my God, what if I would have just done this? What if I just would have done that? All these questions swirling in the mind. And Adriana's been joining me here on Live Your True Life Perspectives. We've been talking about that. Right before the break, we were talking about self-sabotage. And I think that there's a tendency in life for many of us to self-sabotage. I think everybody self-sabotages to a certain degree, whether it's big sabotage or small sabotage. But, you know, when you think about self-sabotage, what are some of the things that come to mind, Adriana?
For me, I always just thought my form of self-sabotage was just constantly talking negatively about myself and hanging around toxic people. That's all that I thought that it was. But I mean, it goes, there's so, like, for example, like, even like, I'm still trying to learn how this is self-sabotage, but even like something as simple as tattoos and piercings, I read that's like a form of self-sabotage. Like, it goes so deep, and there's so many things that I've done that I was so unaware of, and it just kind of blows my mind. So learning like that I did all those behaviors is actually, it's kind of cool to be able to realize why I was doing them and like grow from that. It does blow my mind. But for the going to the blocking thing, like, so I forgot what I was gonna say because I was on a rampage here.
No, but I love what you're saying though, because you're right. There is so many different types of self-sabotage. You know, whether we sabotage ourselves with toxic people to date, whether we sabotage ourselves by choices we make. You know, like, you know, certain drugs, alcohol, that sort of thing. What are we sabotaging ourselves with? You know, sabotaging ourselves hanging out with the wrong people that don't have our, you know, what's right for us in mind. All those things could be self-sabotage.
Right. And they are. So.
But when it comes to blocking, so the whole concept of the whole blocking thing, like when somebody blocks you, I think that we all have to take accountability for our actions, but I think that there's a level of taking accountability, but then there's a level of self-sabotaging ourselves where we're just like, you know, literally, you know, putting the sword in the back and going off on ourselves when it just didn't take ourselves to create this reality.
Right. And I mean, that's probably something I've done in the past. I mean, if I've gotten blocked, like you said, like you start to go down a rabbit hole, and then you start to punish self because you think that you're the baddest person in the world, and you've done the most horrible thing. And then that's where like the self-sabotage for me came in. Like, I would do things outside of my bed, like smoke, drink, like like I did it all because of one person blocking me. It just sent me down that rabbit hole. So,
you know, it's interesting you brought that up too. I've been talking to many clients about this, and I said, you know, you remember back in school, you know, when you were in school and you know, there was a lot of kids that liked you, and then there was only one kid that didn't like you, right? You remember that one kid, and they were a jackass, and like,
I remember their name still.
You remember?
I remember their name still, and I can see their face to this day. They made my life miserable. I remember.
And you remember how weird it was, though? Because I did the same thing. You remember how weird it was? Like, you're friends with all these people, but yet that one person, and it's like on your mind. You know?
Like, I don't know why. I guess it's because for me, just that one person, I feel like I have to be liked by everybody. I don't know why. So because you were saying like the one person isn't your what were you saying?
Yeah, the one person's not. They don't like you. You know what I mean? That one person that doesn't like you.
Yeah, and that would really bother me. And I don't know. It's just, I guess, my need that I need to be liked by everything, and by that one person, it would just really bother me that they did not like me.
Yeah. Now isn't that interesting though?
It is weird. Like, I just don't know why I was so fixated on this one person. I mean, I would even try to like change who I was just to get that person to like me, and it still wouldn't work. So it's just weird. I don't know why. We still do a little bit, not to that extreme, but like I just don't know why we want to be liked by everybody in this world when everybody just simply won't like you, and that's okay.
But you're
It's
right
nothing
about
to do
that.
with you. It's doesn't make you like any less of a person, doesn't make you bad, doesn't make you unlovable, doesn't make you unworthy. But in my head at that time, that's what I thought, because I'm like, well, how can you not like me? I'm a nice, sweet, fun person, you know? So,
Well, and I think it affects everybody. I've talked to so many people about that. And I said, going back to that one kid in school, that one jackass, the one that just would never give you, that would, write you off, make fun of you. And I said, how many times did you think about that person? And you didn't think about all the other people that actually liked you.
right. It, it's, it, you saying that just makes me think of like, oh, you can remember all the bad stuff in your life, but not never remember so much of the good stuff. I don't know why it made me think of that,
Mm-hmm.
but for some reason, it's true. You're just so fixated on it, and it could be, for me, could be a self-worth thing. I'm not sure. So
I think it
it's
is
just
a self worth. I think it's a
remember the
self worth
bad
thing.
for sure.
I think it's about also acceptance. I think we all want everybody to like us to some degree.
Absolutely. I mean, I've come to a point now where I'm still working on that for sure, but you don't want to be like hated by anyone. It's not the best feeling in the world, or disliked by anyone. I mean, and then yeah, sure, that'll do something to your self-confidence for sure. But
Yeah,
it
that'll
it
affect you.
should. I hate to should, like everyone says you shouldn't should yourself, but like it shouldn't have that big of a like an effect, but it does.
But it does. I mean, it's like, I've clients that tell me about, office situations where there's one person in the office that won't talk to them.
Mhm.
And they think about it all the time, and they bring cookie bouquets and all kinds of stuff, and the and the fruit bouquets, or they get something, and the person still blows them off, and
Right.
I'm like, but can we try? And I understand that, but I was like, can we try to refocus on the support system we have instead of just focusing on this one thing
Yeah.
that is really just unnerving us?
And that just seems, now that you're saying that, now that I hear that story, it does seem a little self-sabotaging, because part of you knows that you're going to do this for this person and they're not going to budge, and then herefore that just reiterates what you think of yourself. So in a sense, that feels a little self-sabotaging to me.
Mm-hmm. It is, and that's a form of self sabotage. Is that we're
Mhm.
fully judging ourselves based on one person's assumptions or thoughts of us,
Right. Yeah, that's what that made me think of.
because it's total self sabotage. And we all do it though. I mean, we've all been doing it since elementary school. I mean, I know that many of us, in sixth grade, first grade. I mean, when you were 6 years old, there was that one kid that didn't like you. In high school, there was like one or two kids that didn't like you, and you just kept thinking
Hmm.
about it. I had one of my best friends the other day was telling me. I remember he had this birthday party, and he said he invited like the three kids that just didn't like him, and they didn't show up. They didn't show up, but he was like thinking about how much he wanted them to hang out, and how bad, he felt that they didn't come to his birthday party, and how much pain and suffering. But it doesn't change. It's like no matter when we get older, until we really work on that, we still get impacted by that one person that doesn't like you.
Right. I'm still that, full disclosure, I'm still that way with my boss. I mean, I know she doesn't like me. And here I am, like maybe buying her a donut, or offering to buy her lunch, or like doing extra stuff to make her life easier. But I'm doing that and not getting anything in return, like no positive, like anything. So I still do it. I don't know why, but I do. So
But that's normal. I,
not
I
only in
don't think it's
elementary
normal.
school, it's still, I'm I'm working, and I'm still trying to brown nose my boss. So I don't know.
I mean, like when you try to do that, do they just not respond, or are they just not
No,
interested?
like nothing changes. I'm just hoping for like positive feedback about like myself, about my work, about anything, and I just get like the RBF all the time,
What's
and it's just
RBF?
resting bitch face. So nothing changes, no matter how far out of my way I go to make this person maybe like me the slightest bit. I just had to say to myself, all right, nothing's going to change. I could do whatever and it's not going to change. So,
How long do you feel like you've been brown nosing?
oh, well, I've worked there for maybe 6, 7 years. So 7 years of brown nosing ain't done nothing.
Is she like this to everybody else or just you?
Oh no, like no, she definitely plays her favorites, and I think that being that there we go. So looking back, being that I'm not one of them, it just for some reason it doesn't sit well with me because going back to like I want to be liked by everybody. And again, nobody it's not going to happen. Not everybody in this world's going to like it. I'm still trying to accept that, but so I get it.
It's hard though. It's hard, and you're right.
Mhm.
It's like we want somebody to like us. We want them to see. I think a lot of it too is we want them to see our value.
Right. And I've had a history of people like not seeing my value, my worth, what like, and I guess, I mean, I know I'm not going to see it from my boss, so I don't know why I'm trying. I don't know. But it's hard not to think negatively about yourself when you don't get any type of response from somebody that you're trying to. So it's hard not to think negatively about yourself when you're trying to get somebody else to see your value, what you're worth, and they, excuse my language, shit all over it, and they don't see you. Yeah, it's like a jab. It's a jab in the, but you just learn, unfortunately, that not everybody in this world is going to like you, and some people are just not worth your time because you're just going to burn yourself out. And that's what I've done, honestly, with my boss. And she's not worth the time of day to go out of my way to try to make her like me. It's just not worth it. So,
And it goes back to
I just
value.
yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to value, and I think a lot of it too is that as we're working to see our own value, we would like other people to see our value, and when they don't, it corroborates any sort of core wounds.
Yes. But it's hard for like, because I know she had she has her own struggles. So like stuff she does, like sometimes I wonder if she even values herself because I hear the way she talks. So again, you have to think like, how are you going to value someone else when they don't even value themselves? So you also have to kind of take a look at the other person too and say that they're just in their own space, they're in their own thing, and they just can't. Some people just can't give you the simplest thing is being valued. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
That's true.
you have to think sometimes it's more the other person than just yourself. So don't turn around and start bashing on yourself when it could simply just be like the other person's just not there and able to give that.
You're right.
So
That's true, and we have, and that's one of the other things too. We're gonna go to break real quick, but when we look outside of ourselves, that's another thing. Is like many of us are looking outside of ourselves for value, and when somebody doesn't see the value, it directly connects with those core beliefs that we need to look at and work through, and those core wounds that we need to see. And that's so important because those are the things that are on the basis of why we do what we do, a lot of things, and what our fears are based on. So stay tuned when we return. We'll be talking more about being blocked, that trauma response, and some things that we can do to make things a little better, or to be able to see the perspective a little better, or at least to get some emotional distance where we're not being basically run by the situation or manipulated by the situation. So stay tuned. Live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, Adriana has joined me. We've been talking about blocking and the trauma response and dealing with that, and how, when someone blocks you, it can be the perfect storm based on our attachment styles and the way that we see our life. And sometimes that can be based on our fear of abandonment, that fear of that person leaving us, that fear of that person, leaving our life and not returning. And I know that many of you say, okay, it took a while for me not to see it so extreme or so black and white. And I get that, but it can be really hard to override what I consider attachment styles or even instincts for that matter. And Adriana, I was thinking about we've been talking about a lot of this and the self-sabotage and everything else, but how do we get, how can somebody get a little bit of distance if this is something that, has happened? What are some tips that you would offer that you think people should connect with or look toward if they're in this type of situation?
I mean, personally, I couldn't go through this situation alone. I mean, I needed good people on my side to support me and hear me and listen to the grief that I had to go through with the being blocked with this person. But like you need to surround yourself with good people who value you, who love you, and who it's just hard to do. Like we're not meant to do anything on our own. We're pack people. So
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't do this by myself. And like I said earlier, I also see a therapist, so I talk to her all the time about like like blaming self for the whole thing, and it's just the reminder that it's not my fault. It's definitely, it's hard, and like I said, it's a grieving process. Like you if like it depends on how long the blocking lasts, but for me, I know this one's going to be a permanent thing for the rest of my life. So it's a big process, and it's just one that I can't do alone and haven't been able to do alone. And just I do I actually do something that is quite helpful. There's like I do a journal entry, and it's between like the negative the negative voice inside me and then the healthy voice inside me.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I just write and let them two go at it. And you always like want to let the healthy voice win, because that's like your cheerleader. So that's actually been really helpful for me as well, because I know that I just, before I've had the supports and was writing, I was like on a spiral downwards, thinking everything was my fault. I'm the problem. I've always been the problem. But when I really actually got out of the situation in that relationship, I took a step back and I said, wait, there's two people in this relationship. It's never only one person's fault. It takes two to tango. So I looked at myself, and I also looked at the relationship with the other person. So having grace in that, just knowing that it's not my fault and it's not all my fault entirely, that was incredibly helpful too. So
That's powerful. And I know that there's folks out there, I think too that the blocking in this situation, like these types of permanent blocking that we go through and this toxicity though, exactly. I like how the point of view. On the flip side though, if somebody is, somebody that is good for you to be around and they do block in that situation, usually what I've seen too is in those situations, those people will come around, y'all can, open up the lines of communication and start
mm-hmm.
communicating. And I think because I don't you think that when people are coming into that realm and maybe there's some toxicity, but we're working on healthy communication, eventually somebody's going to come around in that situation and try to
Yes,
rebuild
I
that
mean
relationship.
I'm dealing with that myself, honestly. I've been blocked by a very close family member of mine. And right now, I mean, maybe last week, I just got unblocked for the first time, and it's been months since I've been blocked. And we're like slowly like rebuilding our relationship, and it's going to take time, but it, so once you're blocked, you don't always have to be blocked. There are ways to work through whatever it is that is going on, and to do it in a healthy way and to take a step back. So I also have that going on as well, and I'm incredibly grateful for that.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah, and I think there's many people in the same boat right now, and if you're going through that right now, it's trying to figure out, okay, what steps can I do to take to come to a center point? What things can I do to make things a little better in this situation? And I think over time that does work. It just takes a lot of patience, and patience can be really
yeah.
challenging.
And honestly, like when a person blocks you, it's a boundary, right? So if you're going at them when they're when you're blocked, I'm sorry, then you're just telling the other person, I don't really respect your boundary very much, and I don't respect you, because you see that I've done this and you're still coming at me. So that also sends another, like, that's another sign too. So as hard as it is in the moment, you really want to be respectful of that boundary that they've placed. And you know what I mean? So
yeah, and it is a boundary for some people, and I get it. I mean, I feel like there's other options, but if something is in the heat of the moment and there's no other response, I get it. But at the same
mhm,
time, having that open line of communication, being able to communicate at some point, and sometimes it takes somebody to do some work on their own to come back into the relationship and to start working on it on a different level. That's also something that has to be done sometimes too. But then with some folks out
mhm,
there, I think a lot of people out there are dealing with the blockage of not somebody that necessarily is good for them in their life, but somebody that was just in their life, and really being able to analyze that relationship. And I like the concept of the journaling too. I think that's great. It's like,
mhm.
the kind of the negative thoughts or the judgment thoughts. And then the other side where, it's like, okay, really looking at the honesty, and not
Right.
judging oneself in a negative manner, and being able to have that grace and seeing that situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really powerful tool because it gives you the ability to see that, look, there is a healthy brain, a healthy self in you. And that's the way to let her come out and let her win, honestly. Like I said, to be your own cheerleader. So
And we all
it's a,
need to do that, and that goes back to self-worth, right? So that goes back to
yep,
like self-worth and standing up for ourselves, because if we don't stand up for ourselves, who else is going to do it?
no one. So, absolutely.
That's true. So it's like, okay, so we got to do that. We got to be our own cheerleader. We got to connect with, and I think, last few thoughts for the show. I do definitely, Adriana, I want to have you come back on for sure, because I love for us to talk about self sabotage. I think we could do a whole conversation on self sabotage.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm ready. Yep.
I think it's good because I think everybody out there, come on, we've all self sabotaged. Some of us are self sabotaging now and don't even know it.
And don't even know it. That's what I'm saying. Like I've gotten a list and I went down the list and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize that was considered self-sabotage. And I've been doing it for almost all 28 years of my life and I didn't know it. So it's actually a really important thing to talk about and talk about the different ways for sure. Cause you don't even know sometimes.
You don't even know. And sometimes I found that with self sabotage, we can actually bring people into our life to
Mm-hmm.
actually self sabotage ourselves.
Yep. Yep. Been there, done that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a moth to a flame. I mean, we can do that. We can find it
Mm-hmm.
and we create it in someone else. We're like, oh, here I've matriculated this relationship,
Yeah.
and here we go, and then we go full throttle into that. I figured out, obviously in activities that we can do and things that we can do on our own, but definitely, I mean, we can manufacture self sabotage from every direction.
We really can. It's actually kind of scary. And that would be a great thing to talk about.
Okay, so definitely going to have you back on, Adriana. Thank you so much. Great conversation, because for everybody
Or-
out there listening, this is real. Many of us are going through it. It's painful, it's challenging, and it's something that we have to deal with in life, and it's not something any of us want to deal with in life. These are the
Right.
hard-hitting conversations we have to have, because these are the things that we're all going through.
Yeah. And I guess I went like, you're not alone in those thoughts because I'm like a prime example. So you're not alone. That's all I want to say. And I've been there.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. And you're not alone. Nobody's alone in this. And I know that it's scary. And, especially if you don't have someone to talk to, let's find someone for you to talk to and connect with, because you've got to have an outlet. You can't just have all those thoughts in your head, swirling around in your head, and not have an outlet, especially if you've been blocked by somebody and it's eating you up and it's upsetting you. You've got to get these thoughts on paper. You've got to communicate with somebody, because you've got to be able to have a sounding board to be able
Yep.
to process this information properly, and to be able to slowly, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually move on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Can't wait to see you back on the next show.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. For everybody listening, I hope the show has helped connect you with you, understanding the concept. And I know many of us have that fear. We have that fear of abandonment. We have that fear of losing a loved one. We have that fear of dealing with the toxic relationships that we didn't really see as toxic, but we had to deal with it, and being blocked by those situations. And it's painful, but we can get over it and we can move on back with our life, really seeing the value in our life and realizing if somebody was really valuable in our life and they were good for our life, they're not going to be blocked permanently. And so understanding that and seeing that we can work through that and get to the other side with that, and be able to also accept ourselves in the process. And like Adriana said, working to give ourselves some grace. I hope the show has helped. Please connect and check out YouTube. Go to YouTube. Just look up Ashley, B-E-R-G-E-S. Ashley, B-E-R-G-E-S. New content, video content up every week. Also, we're on TikTok now, so you can check out the TikTok as well as the podcast and any earlier podcasts that have aired. Thanks for listening. Please share with your family and friends. Live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.